Now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! 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 Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here as always on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade JJ Williams, and it's Christmas Eve evening here on the Casa, and we're going to take a look at the classic film Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life, starring James Stewart, Donna Reed, Lionel Barrymore, Henry Travers, Frank Phelan, Ward Bond, and Gloria Graham. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. As I said in the introduction, it is Christmas Eve evening here, and we're going to take a look at one of the most iconic Christmas films of all time, It's a Wonderful Life. And our movie opens on Christmas Eve in the year 1945 in Bedford Falls, New York, as George Bailey contemplates suicide. The prayers of his family and friends reach up to heaven, where guardian angel second class Clarence Oddbody is assigned to save George in order to earn his wings. Clarence is then shown flashbacks of George's life, and he watches a 12-year-old George rescue his younger brother Harry from drowning, but as a result, he becomes deaf in his left ear. George then prevents pharmacist Mr. Gower, who is distraught over the death of his son, from accidentally poisoning a prescription. In 1928, George is planning a world tour before college. He is reintroduced to Mary Hatch, who has been enamored with him ever since childhood. When his father dies suddenly, George postpones his travel in order to settle the family business, the Bailey Brothers Building and Loan. However, greedy board member Henry F. Potter, who controls most of the town, seeks to dissolve it. However, the board votes to keep the building and loan open, but only if George runs it. George acquiesces and works alongside his uncle Billy and gives his college tuition money to Harry, with the explicit understanding that Harry will run the business when he graduates. Harry returns from college, married and with a job offer on the table from his new father in law, causing George to resign himself to running the building and loan for the rest of his life. George and Mary rekindle their relationship and then end up getting married. They witness a run on the bank and they end up using their honeymoon savings in order to keep the building and loan operational. Under George's leadership, the company establishes Bailey Park, a modern housing development that surpasses Potter's overpriced slums. Potter, feeling threatened, entices George with a job at $20,000 a year, but realizing that Potter's true intention is to close the building and loan, George rebuffs the offer. During World War II, George is ineligible for service because of his deaf ear, but he remains active in the domestic war effort. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the town prepares a hero's welcome for Harry, who was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions as a U.S. Navy fighter pilot preventing a kamikaze attack on a troop transport. When Billy goes to Potter's bank to deposit $8,000 of the building and loan's cash, he taunts Potter with a newspaper headline about Harry, but absent-mindedly wraps the envelope of cash inside of Potter's newspaper. Potter finds the money and keeps it while Billy cannot recall how he misplaced it. With the bank examiner reviewing the company's records, George realizes that scandal and criminal charges will no doubt follow. Fruitlessly retracing Billy's steps, George berates him and takes out his frustration on Mary and their kids. George then attempts to appeal to Potter for a loan, offering his life insurance policy as collateral. Potter chastises George, refuses to help, and phones the police. George then flees Potter's office, gets drunk at a bar, and prays for some assistance. Now suicidal, he goes to a nearby bridge, but before he can jump, Clarence dives into the river and George rescues him. When George wishes that he had never been born, Clarence shows George a timeline in which he had never existed. Bedford Falls is now Pottersville, an unsavory town occupied by sleazy entertainment venues, crime, and callous people. Mr. Gower was imprisoned for manslaughter because George was not there to stop him from accidentally poisoning the prescription. George's mother doesn't know him. Uncle Billy was institutionalized after the building and loan failed. Bailey Park is a cemetery where George discovers Harry's grave. You see, without George, Harry died as a child, and without Harry to save them, the troops aboard that transport ship were killed. George finds Mary, now a spinster, and when he claims to be her husband, she screams for the police, causing George to flee once again. George then races back to the bridge and begs Clarence for his life back. The original timeline is restored, and a grateful George rushes home to await his arrest. Meanwhile, Mary and Billy have rallied the townspeople who donate more than enough money to cover what was missing. Harry arrives and toasts George as the richest man in town. Among the donations, George finds a copy of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, a gift from Clarence, with the note assuring him that no man is a failure who has friends, and thanking him for allowing him to get his wings. When a bell on the Christmas tree rings, George's youngest daughter, Zuzu, explains that teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. George finally realizes that he truly has had a wonderful life, and our movie comes to its end. What else can be said about It's a Wonderful Life if we're being 100% honest here? There's so much praise heaped upon this movie that some people think it's overrated, and some people think that despite the praise, this movie is still seriously criminally underrated. I kind of fall in the middle there. When I was younger, I definitely thought this film was overrated, but I didn't understand things the way I do now. You know, this movie was in the public domain for years until Turner Classic Movies rescued it. So, this movie essentially was the Christmas story of my generation, where for like 24, 48 hours, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the week leading up to Christmas, this was aired non-stop. Why? Because it was public domain. Nobody had to pay for copyrights to it. So they could just air it for free, have advertisers advertising, and the station makes money. So during those days, I definitely thought this film was overrated. Like, I would sit down and try to watch it. I'd get bored because on TV it was 3 hours with commercials. And you figure the first hour and a half, hour 45 is just the building of the story for Clarence to come down. And you're like, dude, nowadays I'm all about exposition. I love the backstory. But as a kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, you're like, can we get on with this? What is this all building to? You just don't have the patience. And then I want to say it was the mid 90s. There was a live performance on television of this. and Bill Pullman was in it and a few other people, but Bill Pullman is the one I remember the most. I want to say he was Harry Bailey. And I watched that version. And it was a little bit more condensed because it was a stage presentation, so they got their stuff done in maybe an hour and a half, condensed it some. And I enjoyed it. Maybe because it was more modern day actors, people I had more of a connection to. Again, Bill Pullman at the time I knew from Spaceballs as Lone Star, and I think Independence Day had done its thing already, where he was the president of the United States alongside Will Smith. But with there being a few actors in there that I could connect to, maybe that's what helped pull me through to where I could sit down and watch the official movie. I know in the 90s, Beavis and Butthead did a skit basically making fun of It's a Wonderful Life, where one of their episodes was themed around it. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, and we'll discuss this next week, the Muppets did their take. It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie, which again, I'll talk about next week. But I think all of that, the stage show, Beavis and Butthead, the Muppets doing it, really kind of got me to the point where I was like, okay, I need to sit down and watch this movie. And I loved it. And then becoming a father and having my own daughter whose innocence and wonder very much reminded me of Zuzu, the youngest in the film. The one who says, "Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings." So then there's that connection because my child had that innocence and wonder much like Zuzu did. Then there was, in the 90s, I forgot to mention this one, there was a song came out by Vince Gill and Trisha Yearwood called An Angel Gets Its Wings. And on the surface, it's a decent enough song. But one of the local radio stations, 93.9 KZLA, took dialogue from It's a Wonderful Life and spliced it into the song. So as you're listening to Vince and Trisha sing this song, you're hearing dialogue from James Stewart and Donna Reed and Lionel Barrymore and Clarence and everything. And it's like, that I think helped too because you're getting little bits of this movie spliced in with a popular song at the time. I've had the privilege of being able to see this in theaters a couple times now. When I was living down in Long Beach, there was a theater called the Bay Theater in Seal Beach, California, that would always show classic movies. Nothing first run, just classics. So every year at Christmas time, they would have this, of course. Went down there a couple times and saw it on the big screen. I'm so glad I finally was able to get through and give this the attention it deserved, though, because this is a classic. And enough positive things can't be said about James Stewart and Donna Reed, especially, but Lionel Barrymore. Going back to those of you who tuned into my 1938 Reginald Owen review of A Christmas Carol may remember, I said that Reginald Owen wasn't the original choice to play Scrooge in that. It was supposed to be Lionel Barrymore, because Lionel Barrymore had done radio broadcasts of A Christmas Carol for years as Scrooge. And this was supposed to be the transfer of that radio broadcast to film. But Lionel was ill, so Lionel suggested that Reginald do the movie, and then a few years down the road, he got to be Old Man Potter. And honestly, I think it was the best thing that could happen to him. Because Reginald Owen hit a home run for A Christmas Carol, and Lionel Barrymore was just so evil and sinister. And you watch it and you just want to watch him get his just due. And he never does. It's one of the few villains that actually, for the most part, succeeds. It's not until the town rallies together at the end that they're able to pull it out, in typical Christmas fashion. But Old Man Potter is still the richest man in town. Nothing happens to him. He's still successful. You know, George and company are able to get the money, save the building and loan, avoid going to jail, but Potter's still there. He'll just get them next time. Nothing really happens to resolve the Potter situation. So it's I honestly think that him not being in that version of A Christmas Carol was the best thing that could have happened to him, because this movie and his performance as Old Man Potter is just so dastardly and good. When it comes to my rating for It's a Wonderful Life, I have to give it 5 out of 5 stars. It's such a classic. It's so timeless. It's so heartwarming. And now it's a film that is a Christmas chestnut for me. And I must watch it every single year. What do you guys think of It's a Wonderful Life? Let me know. If you're watching the premiere, leave your thoughts and comments over here. If you're watching on demand later in the day, leave your thoughts and comments down here. Let's have that conversation, that discussion, that debate, that interaction that I'm always asking you guys for in the comments below. And make sure you guys tune in tomorrow, right here to the Casa D18 Studios channel for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. And we're going to discuss the other timeless classic, Miracle on 34th Street, starring Maureen O'Hara, John Payne, Edmund Gwynn, Gene Lockhart, Natalie Wood, William Frawley, Jerome Cowan, and Jack Albertson. You don't want to miss out on any of that content right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel on Renegades Reviews. Still got a week's worth of holiday content for you to tune into and enjoy here on the Casa D18 Studios channel. So make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that notification bell is turned on so you don't miss out anytime a video drops right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel or anytime we go live, as is the case with Statboy Sports Bar, Open Mic Night, pay-per-view PLE coverage, etc. Share these videos with your family, friends, loved ones, coworkers, movie fanatics, cinephiles in your life, fans of James Stewart, fans of Donna Reed, fans of Lionel Barrymore, fans of It's a Wonderful Life. Anybody you can think of that would enjoy my content and my videos, share this with them. It's the only way we're going to boost my visibility in YouTube's algorithms so I can eventually get monetized and make some money on this endeavor. Thank you once again to everyone who joined me and tuned in today. It means more to me than you'll ever know. Merry Christmas, and I will see you guys next time.